The shepherd's daughter. It is the opinion of my grandmother that all men should labor and at the table a moment ago. She said to me, "You must learn to do some good work, the making of some item useful to men, something out of the clay, or out of wood, or metal, or cloth. It is not proper for young men to be ignorant of an honorable craft. Is there anything you can make? Can you make a simple table, a chair, a plain dish, a rug, a coffee pot? Is there anything you can do?" And my grandmother looked at me with anger. "I know," she said. "You are supposed to be a writer, and I suppose you are. You certainly smoke enough cigarettes to be anything, and the whole house is full of smoke, but you must learn to make some solid things. Things that can be used, that can be seen and touched." "There was a king of Persia," said my grandmother, "and he had a son, and this son fell in love with a shepherd's daughter. He went to his father and he said, 'My lord, I love my shepherd's daughter, and I would have her for my wife.' And the king said, 'I am king, and you are my son, and when I die you shall be king. How can it be that you would marry the daughter of a shepherd?' And the son said, 'My lord, I do not know, but I know that I love this girl and would have her my queen.' The king saw his son's love for the girl was genuine, and he said, 'I'll send a message to her.' And he called a messenger to him, and he said, 'Go to shepherd's daughter, and say that my son loves her, and would have her wife his wife.' And the messenger went to the girl, and he said, 'The king's son loves you, and would have you for his wife.' And the girl said, 'What labor does he do?' And the messenger said, 'Why, he is the son of a king. He does no labor.' And the girl, he said, he must learn to do some labor. And the messenger returned to king and spoke the words of the shepherd's daughter. The king said to his son, 'The shepherd's daughter wishes you to learn some craft. Would you still have her for your wife?' And the son said, 'Yes, I'll learn to weave straw rugs.' And the boy was taught to weave rugs of straw, in patterns and in colors and with ornamental design, and at the end of 3 days he was making very fine straw rugs. And the messenger returned to the shepherd's daughter, and he said, 'These rugs of straw are the work of the king's son.' And the girl went with the messenger to king's place, and she became the wife of the king's son. One day, said my grandmother, the king's son was walking through the streets of Baghdad, and he came upon an eating place which was so clean and cool that he entered it and sat at a table. This place, said my grandmother, was a place of thieves and murderers, and they took the king's son and placed him with him in a large dungeon where many great men of the city were being held, and the thieves and murderers were killing the fattest of the men, feeding them to leanest of them, and making support of it. The king's son was of the leanest of the men, and it was not known that he was the son of the king of the Persians, so his life was spared. And he said to thieves and murderers, 'I am a weaver of straw rugs, and these rugs have great value.' And they brought him straw and asked him to weave. And in 3 days we weaved 3 rugs, and he said, 'Carry these to palace of the king of the Persian, and for each rug he will give you 100 gold piece of money.' And the rugs were carried to the palace of the king. And when the king saw the rugs, he saw that they were the work of his son. And he took the rugs to the shepherd's daughter, and he said, 'These rugs were brought to the palace, and they are at the work of my son who is lost.' And the shepherd's daughter took each rug and looked at it closely, and in the design of each rug she saw in the written language of Persian a message from her husband, and she related this message to the king. And the king said, 'My grandmother sent soldiers to the place of thieves and murderers.' And the soldiers rescued all the captives and killed all the thieves and murderers. And the king's son was returned safely to the palace of his father and the company of his wife. The little shepherd's daughter and the little shepherd's daughter. And when the boy went into the palace of his father and saw again his wife, he humbled himself before her and embraced her feet. And he said, "My love, it is because of you that I am alive." And the king was greatly pleased with the shepherd's daughter. "Now," said my grandmother, "do you see why every man should learn an honorable craft?" "I see very clearly," I said. "And as soon as I learn enough money to buy a saw and a hammer and a piece of lumber, I shall do my best to make a simple chair or a shelf for books."